The mental shortcuts that define your world. Quick, answer this question as fast as you can. Which of these three things causes most and least deaths worldwide? Heart disease, strokes, or lung cancer? Well, according to the World Health Organization, heart disease is the world's biggest killer, responsible for almost 9 million deaths annually. Next are strokes at about 6.25 million, and then at just 3.2 million come lower respiratory infections, including both lung cancer and pneumonia. So lung cancer is a terrible killer, but heart disease claims more than 3 times as many lives each year. Now, if, when I asked you that question, you ranked cancer higher, you're not alone. When people are asked to make rapid judgments, they tend to rely on mental shortcuts known as heuristics, rules of thumb that are essential to functioning in everyday situations, but that don't always come up with the right answer. In this case, what's known as the availability heuristic is in evidence. This describes our tendency to assume that something is likely or significant in direct proportion to how easily it comes to mind. Perhaps most famously, people tend to overestimate the likelihood of death or injury from causes like terrorism because these generate very high levels of media attention and awareness. And we underestimate the likelihood of death or injury from less striking causes such as heart disease or traffic accidents. Well, the average American is about 35,000 times more likely to die from heart disease than terrorism. One vivid story that attracts large amounts of publicity can have more impact on people's perceptions than any mere information about likelihood or significance. Hence, celebrity endorsements. Can you think of a single soft drink that hasn't been endorsed by one or more famous person? Now, here's an example of a different heuristic in action. Which of these two products would you prefer to eat? Delicious chicken that is 90% fat-free, or fresh chicken meat that is 10% fat? As you probably noticed, these are two different descriptions of the same thing. But labeling something 90% fat-free sounds much more appealing than labeling it 10% fat. And this is what's known as a framing effect. It relies on the fact that our judgments are all relative rather than absolute. We always assess things based on a particular frame of reference. Crucially, we also tend to see only one frame of reference when making decisions. There's a big difference between hearing that 1 in 10 teachers suffers from nervous exhaustion and that 90% of teachers have never experienced exhaustion. And of course, which frame is used will depend on who is speaking and how they want you to react. At root, all heuristics do the same thing. They replace a complex question with something that is amenable to a fast, simple, instinctual solution. So why bother trying to think about tricky stats and absolutes when you can be guided by the way someone has framed a question? Why worry about detailed death statistics when it's easy and natural to be guided by stories you vaguely remember hearing on the news? Most of the time, heuristics are handy, indeed essential. Nobody wants to spend an hour choosing which socks to buy. But they can also make us vulnerable to both manipulation and predictable errors. So what's the best advice for resisting? Practice saying this to yourself: unless I have taken and learned from a lot of decisions like this before, going with my gut is probably not a good idea.